She never earned anything in her miserable life. My Aunt Victoria's voice pierced the air through the wireless microphone, reverberating across the gilded grand ballroom of the Tidewater Maritime Club, cutting instantly through the classical chamber quartet playing for 47 distinguished naval contractors, state senators, and port authority executives. Look at her, standing by the coat check in those salt-stained boots and plain service khakis, pretending her low-level administrative desk job in Navy logistics gives her the right to set foot in a private family estate. I stood motionless beside the heavy mahogany pillars in my Navy service dress blue uniform, my posture erect, my left index finger pressing firmly inside my jacket pocket against the sharp, notched edge of a heavy bronze anchor pin engraved with Victor 09. At the head of the main banquet stage hung a massive silk banner honoring Tidewater Maritime Holdings' 50 years of port infrastructure and excellence. Standing beside my aunt under the brilliant glare of the stage lights was my cousin, Brandon, wearing a bespoke double-breasted tux, casually swirling an amber glass of top-shelf bourbon, a cold, arrogant smirk spreading across his lips. Standing directly behind him, wearing a platinum wristwatch I had purchased for him with my deployment combat pay, was my former fiancé, Harrison, looking down at his polished leather shoes with calculated indifference. "Aunt Victoria, hand over the microphone," I said, keeping my voice dead flat, utilizing the exact low, metered frequency I had spent 7 years perfecting as Lieutenant Commander Kendra Cross, Chief Maritime Intelligence Auditor for Naval Criminal Investigation Service. "You issued a priority command summons to my base duty officer at 0200 hours claiming my biological father's naval pension trust was under immediate federal tax seizure and required my biometric signature to prevent total liquidation. I used your commanding officer's official emergency channel to force your pathetic presence into this room on regional closed-circuit TV." Victoria declared into the microphone, her diamond bracelets clinking violently as a wave of shocked whispers rippled across the 47 seated guests. "I wanted every major port commissioner in this state to see what an ungrateful, freeloading parasite looks like. You spent 7 years hiding behind comfortable desk assignments while Brandon and Harrison worked 100-hour weeks expanding our family's deep-water shipping lanes. Meanwhile, you refused to contribute a single dollar from your officer salary to support your own paralyzed father's private nursing facility." Harrison took a deliberate step toward the podium microphone, assuming an expression of grief-stricken disappointment that made my pulse steady into a cold, lethal rhythm. "It breaks my heart to speak out like this in public, Kendra," Harrison addressed the silent audience. "I tried to cover for you for years, but your bitter resentment, your coldness, and your obsessive jealousy towards Brandon made a future between us impossible. Brandon is securing defense contracts that employ thousands. You're just a spiteful, broken officer who uses her uniform to bully her own family." A collective murmur of disgust swept through the surrounding tables. Prominent shipping executives shook their heads in contempt. A regional journalist sitting at table 2 adjusted his camera lens to focus directly on my eyes. Brandon took a step toward the edge of the stage, pulling a heavy brass cipher key from his breast pocket, the identical cipher key my late father had used to secure his private naval vault 20 years ago. "Hand over the master encrypted drive, Kendra," Brandon whispered into the microphone, his voice dripping with condescension. "The master drive doesn't belong to Tidewater Maritime, Brandon," I answered quietly, my thumb tracing the sharp notch of the bronze pin marked Victor 09 inside my pocket. "She's completely unstable," my aunt's business manager Gilbert yelled from the VIP table, slamming his wine glass onto the white linen tablecloth. "Security, drag this embarrassment out to the parking lot before she ruins the signing ceremony." 2 muscular private security guards stepped out from behind the velvet curtains, closing in on my flanks. But before their fingers could touch my sleeves, a low, commanding voice echoed from the center elevated table near the stage. If either of those men places a hand on an active-duty naval officer, they will spend the next 10 years in a federal brig, the voice thundered. The entire ballroom went dead silent. The 2 security guards froze instantly, taking 3 quick steps back as they recognized the heavy gold lace and 4 silver stars pinned to the shoulder boards of the officer standing tall in his service dress white uniform, Rear Admiral Arthur Vance, Commander of Naval Supply Systems Command, flanked by 2 plainclothes NCIS special agents. Rear Admiral Vance adjusted his white gloves, his face carved from dark granite, and walked straight toward the stage, his spit-shined shoes striking the marble floor like crisp rifle shots. He passed the VIP tables without glancing at the port commissioners, past Harrison, and came to a hard halt 2 feet directly in front of my aunt. "Rear Admiral Vance?" Victoria stammered, her voice dropping an octave as her composure crumbled into visible panic. What is the meaning of this military intrusion? This is a private civic celebration. Kendra is nothing more than a mid-level supply clerk who was disciplined for administrative negligence. Rear Admiral Vance slowly turned his head, looking down at Victoria with ice-cold authority. Lieutenant Commander Kendra Cross is the senior lead auditor assigned to Task Force Victor 09 by the Department of Defense Inspector General, Mrs. Sterling, and this private celebration is officially an active crime scene. Brandon's smug smirk vanished instantly, replaced by a pale, twitching jaw. Task Force Victor 09? Brandon spat, trying desperately to maintain his posture as he held up the brass cipher key. "This is outrageous. We hold exclusive federal maritime clearance for Terminal 4. My father inherited those transit rights from my late uncle, Captain Thomas Cross." "Is that what your mother told you, Brandon?" I asked, stepping out of the shadow of the mahogany pillars and walking steadily up the central aisle toward the stage. I pulled the sharp bronze anchor pin stamped Victor 09 from my pocket and held it high under the direct glare of the center spotlight, the exact pin my biological father, Captain Thomas Cross, had pressed in my hand inside his military hospital room 4 hours before he lost his ability to speak. "7 years ago," I said, my voice echoing off the high ceiling with surgical clarity, "my aunt and cousin informed me that my father's shipping firm was bankrupt, that his specialized neurological care cost $40,000 a month, and that if I didn't sign over my military power of attorney to Harrison, Dad would be evicted from his medical suite and left in a state ward." "Don't listen to her!" Brandon shrieked, dropping his glass of bourbon, the crystal shattering loudly on the stage floor. "She's lying. She's suffering from deployment trauma. She's making up insane stories." "I signed that military power of attorney," I continued, stepping right up to the edge of the stage, ignoring Brandon as the 47 guests leaned forward in absolute shock. "Every single month, every single dollar, for 84 consecutive months, $14,000 a month was automatically deducted from my combat hazard pay, my operational flight bonuses, and my naval disability trust. I lived in a freezing off-base trailer, wore worn-out boots, and ate standard field rations, believing every single cent was keeping my paralyzed father alive in a private facility in Norfolk." "It was!" Victoria screamed, grabbing the microphone stand with both hands, her voice cracking. "Every single dollar went straight to his specialized care team." Then why? Rear Admiral Vance interrupted, unzipping a heavy black leather military portfolio and pulling out a certified federal document. Does the Department of Veterans Affairs Central Registry show that Captain Thomas Cross was transferred to a fully federally funded VA polytrauma center 6 years ago, covered entirely by his 30 years of active military service? The silence in the Tidewater Maritime Club was deafening. Victoria stood frozen like a stone statue, her mouth slightly open, the color completely drained from her face. "You lied to me for 7 years, Aunt Victoria," I said, looking into her eyes with unwavering focus. "You told me Dad was in strict medical quarantine and visitors were prohibited by federal health regulations. You sent me manufactured monthly medical receipts stamped with a fake physician's seal just so you, Brandon, and Harrison could siphon over $1.1 million of my combat pay to fund Brandon's luxury marina properties and Harrison's offshore shell accounts." "Kendra," Harrison stammered, backing 3 steps away from Brandon, holding his hands up in a desperate gesture of innocence. "Kendra, please, listen to me. It wasn't my idea. Your aunt told me you were deployed in classified operational sectors and would never check local VA records. She promised me the money was being held in trust for the family estate." "You sniveling coward," Brandon screamed, turning around and shoving Harrison violently against the table. He pointed to the podium. "You were the one who set up the shell companies in Nevis. You forged her digital audit signatures on the port clearance transfers." "I forged them because your mother swore she held full legal power of attorney," Harrison yelled back, his voice cracking into full-blown panic as 47 city officials watched them tear each other apart in front of news cameras. Without saying another word, I walked over to the main media console beside the chamber quartet stage. I inserted the notched bronze pin Victor 09 into the master encrypted terminal and entered my 10-digit CID security clearance pin. The massive silk banner behind the stage unlatched with a loud mechanical click and dropped to the floor, exposing a 30-foot high-definition projection screen that flickered to life. Instead of promotional reels for Tidewater Maritime's anniversary, the screen displayed a real-time forensic audit ledger from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, complete with federal bank routing trails, red investigative seals, and decrypted offshore wire transactions. Source account LTCD K Cross, Combat Hazard/Disability Trust. Destination account, Brandon Sterling Holdings, Nevis. Total stolen funds, $1,176,000. Restricted Deepwater Transit Permit, Victor 09, registered solely to Captain Thomas Cross and Lieutenant Commander Kendra Cross. You told this city that Brandon built Tidewater Maritime through commercial innovation. Brandon didn't secure our state's deep water shipping lanes through merit. I cleared those logistics corridors using my active naval intelligence credentials during my night shifts. Harrison stole my digital credentials using the military power of attorney my aunt tricked me into signing while I was recovering from an IED explosion in the Persian Gulf. "No, that transit permit belongs to the Sterling family legacy," Victoria shrieked, her voice turning into a ragged, desperate scream. "A military power of attorney obtained through fraudulent medical misrepresentation is a federal felony, Mrs. Sterling," Admiral Vance stated coldly. At that exact moment, the heavy double doors at the rear of the ballroom burst open. 6 uniformed NCIS special agents, accompanied by federal marshals, marched down the central aisle, their tactical boots striking the marble floor in synchronized rhythm. The lead special agent walked straight up the stage steps, stopping directly between Victoria, Brandon, and Harrison. Victoria Sterling, Brandon Sterling, Harrison Cole, you are under arrest for multi-year federal wire fraud, stolen military pension embezzlement, corporate identity theft, and treasonous manipulation of classified naval port transit permits. "Get your hands off me!" Brandon shrieked as an agent pulled his arms behind his back. The sharp, cold snap of steel handcuffs echoed through the silent ballroom. "Your lease on Terminal 4 was revoked 2 hours ago following Lieutenant Commander Cross's submission of sworn federal affidavits and forensic banking ledgers." Harrison offered no resistance. He dropped to his knees on the stage carpet, weeping hysterically as the officers cuffed his wrists behind his back. Victoria gasped for air as her silk gown caught on the podium edge while she was led away, her social standing, her wealth, and her family name utterly destroyed before every major investor and media outlet in the region. "Kendra, stop them, please!" Victoria sobbed, her face contorted in frantic terror as she was hauled past me toward the exit. "You are our blood. You can't let these people drag your own aunt and cousin to a federal prison." I stood straight, my shoulders square, my eyes clear and calm, looking at my aunt without a single trace of hesitation. "You said I never earned anything, Aunt Victoria," I said softly, my voice carrying into every silent corner of the room. "And tonight, I'm proud to show you what earned justice looks like." As the federal marshals escorted Victoria, Brandon, and Harrison down the aisle past a crowd of horrified investors who were already tearing up their business contracts, Rear Admiral Vance and the 2 NCIS agents stepped up beside me. They didn't offer empty words of comfort. They brought their heels together with a sharp click and rendered a synchronized, silent salute of profound military respect. Slowly, every defense contractor, port worker, and naval officer in the ballroom stood up from their tables, breaking into a roaring, rising, standing ovation that echoed off the high ceiling, honoring the female officer who had stood unflinching against total family corruption. I held my chin high, feeling the cold weight of truth in my heart, knowing that 7 years of manipulation had finally dissolved into the permanent, unshakable peace of earned victory. You can never fix a toxic family by sacrificing your honor, your earnings, or your truth. For 7 long years, I allowed my family to manipulate my sense of loyalty, believing that my silent financial sacrifices were keeping my father alive and earning the love of people who only saw me as a resource to exploit. I let them insult my naval service, belittle my achievements, and steal my combat pay because I foolishly believed that maintaining family peace was worth any personal cost. But greedy, manipulative people do not view your sacrifice as love. They view it as a weakness to be exploited. They will steal your hard work, destroy your reputation, and attempt to silence you, all while playing the victim the instant their deception is brought into the light. True peace does not come from quietly enduring abuse to protect people who harm you. True peace comes from standing firm in your integrity, walking boldly into the light of truth, and allowing the unyielding consequences of their own choices to dismantle their lies. Never set yourself on fire to keep toxic people warm.